this is probably my favorite week in the MLS regular season because it's Heineken Rivalry week. And in this match week, we are going to see every single derbies that's going to be take place in MLS. From the more well-known one like El Tráfico, New York Derby, and the Cascadia Derby happening this week. And some of the less well-known one, or some of the more wacky kind of derbies, kind of name that you didn't think that it actually exists. And what I'm going to do with the preview for the midweek action and also for the weekend action that I'm going to be doing on Thursday is that I'm going to actually name every game with a derby name. And even in some of the games where it's not really a rivalry and that you have two teams that, they don't really consider themselves a rivalry, or they don't just have a name for it, I'm just going to come up with a name for them because, again, I want to fit into that Heineken Rivalry week theme into the preview too. So with that being said, let's take a look at the first game. And the first game is a good example of why every single game this week, or not every single game of this week, is actually a rivalry. Because NYCFC versus Columbus, both of these teams certainly do not have a big rivalry with each other. But if I have to come up with a name of this rivalry, I'm going to say it is called the Outdated Stadium Derby. Because NYCFC, who's coming into this game with a record of 11-8-5, is playing at Yankee Stadium. And although Yankee Stadium is not an outdated stadium, it's a baseball stadium. And soccer playing in a baseball stadium just does not make sense whatsoever. While Columbus, coming into this game, they have a record of 7-6-14. They are playing at matchweek Stadium, which is one of the oldest stadium in MLS, or actually the oldest soccer-specific stadium in MLS right now, and that it's pretty outdated, and that when you look at it, it's clearly shown that it has definitely not aged very well. Now, coming into this game, NYCFC, of course, won 4-1 against the other Ohio team, FC Cincinnati, away on the road, while Columbus drew 2-2 to TFC at home. And in the last 5 head-to-head matchup between both of these teams, the last match, which happened earlier this season, was a draw between NYCFC versus Columbus at 2. Then Columbus, of course, won 2-1 against NYCFC, before NYCFC returning the favor to Columbus by winning 2-0 against them. They drew 2-2 in the last 4 meeting, before in the last 5 meeting, it was NYCFC winning 3-2 against the Columbus Crew. Now, when you look at this game, you would think that this should be easy 3 points for NYCFC, considering the fact that they're playing a Columbus team that is near the bottom of the Eastern Conference. But Columbus have really shown some fight in these last couple of weeks, and in many ways, they're started to not only show some fights, but it started to get some resort and kind of almost think like they still have a chance to make the playoffs this season. I mean, they have got a couple of wins and a couple of draws, and I think they're on a 5-game unbeaten run right now. So NYCFC's got to be careful with Columbus, because this is definitely a very good team, and a team that is starting to return into a good form. And we know that NYCFC, last time when they tried to face a team that's near the bottom of the standings, they almost dropped points in that game. And that it was the game against Houston where if it wasn't for a late winner and if it wasn't for Castellanos scoring that late goal in stoppage time, they would have dropped points against the Dynamo, and that they had a man advantage in that game. So I won't be surprised if Columbus can get a draw out of this game, but for NYCFC, if you want to get near the top of the Eastern Conference and that you have those games in hand to get yourself up to the top 3 of the Eastern Conference, this is kind of the game that you have to win. Now, moving on into the next derby is the Atlantic Cup. So this is one of the oldest derby in MLS, because both of these teams are original MLS franchise, with DC United coming into this game with a record of 10-9-8, while the Redbulls are coming into this game with an 11-5-10 record. DC, of course, lost 1-0 to Vancouver away, while the Redbulls drew 1-1 to New England at home. And in the last 5 matches, well, it seemed like the Redbulls pretty much dominate the Atlantic Cup in the last 5 matches. Both of these teams drew 3-3 in last year's meeting. The Redbulls, of course, winning 1-0 to DC before doing the same thing on the road road to DC United. Then, of course, they won 2-1 again on the road against DC before drawing 3-3 against DC United at home. And that there's no doubt that the Redbulls are the more dominant team. And in fact, if you even want to go further back into the history, the Redbulls have actually not lost to DC United ever since 2016. And that it's been almost 3 years now that it's been that long since DC was able to get a win against the Redbulls. And knowing the fact that DC did suffer that embarrassing 1-0 loss to Vancouver and they have to travel all the way across the other side of the country to play this game on a short rest, something tells me this doesn't give them... There is not really a really high chance that they are going to finally break that run with the Redbulls where they finally was able to win a game. However, they are playing at home in this game. Although the bad news is the Redbulls this season, for whatever reason, they tend to do much better on the road than they are at home. I mean, historically, the Redbulls, they have actually done much better at home, and they at least get some result on the road. And last season, they were both good at home and on the road. But this season, that has not been the case. It's been them actually picking up more points that they have done on the road than they have done at home, and that they have dropped a lot of home points at home this season, which is very uncharacteristic of the New York Redbulls. But yeah, this is also a game where it does have some playoff implication in terms of the home field advantage. DC is currently sitting at that last spot of the home field advantage for the knockout round in 4th place, while the Redbulls are currently in 5th and looking outside of the home field advantage. And in fact, if the playoffs start today, both of these teams would be facing off each other in the knockout round, and I definitely would like to see this kind of game in the playoffs because, there's the history of the rivalry, and then there's a lot of history of both of these teams facing off each other in the playoffs back in the early days of MLS. So yeah, this will definitely make it a very good rivalry if that, of course, would happen. Now, moving on into the next match is what LAFC fan call Cali Clasico 2.0. Now, the reason why I say LAFC fan only is because I don't know a lot of Quakes fan call this Cali Clasico 2.0. And, for me, in my opinion, I definitely don't call this Cali Clasico 2.0 because, there's only one Cali Clasico, and it's always going to be the Quakes versus the Galaxy. Even though LAFC, of course, is a brand new team in LA, we don't usually call... they can't just, come into the league and say, oh, we see this NorCal team and we see how the Quakes and the Galaxy have, a Cali Clasico. We're just going to do the same thing again. That's not how it works, LAFC. But I will say this, LAFC, this coming into this game have a record of 18-4-3, while they're playing against the Quakes, who currently have a record of 11-5-9. And LAFC, of course, won 2-0 to RSL away, while the Quakes, of course, is winless in 4 games. And, there's only 3 meetings between both of these teams, which is another example why I don't call this a Cali Clasico or a rivalry, because there's not really a lot of match into these games. And also, in those 3 meetings that both of these teams face, it's been pretty one-sided. I mean, we all know what happened earlier in the season when the Quakes lost 5-0 to LAFC, and that last year they lost 2-0 to LAFC on the road before losing in a heartbreaker that, yeah, I don't really need to mention it, especially I still remember that memory of us losing that game and how we lost that. But, when you look at this game, obviously it looks like narrative is going to continue where LAFC is just going to continue to dominate against the Quakes. Now, one thing I will say is, and one thing that does give me a little bit hope as a Quakes fan, is that this could maybe be a trap game for LAFC. Because after this game, when they play against the Quakes, they are going to play in El Tráfico against the Galaxy. And I can guarantee you that if there's one thing that LAFC really wants besides MLS Cup this season, is that they want to beat their hated rival. They still haven't able to beat the Galaxy, and that's been really kind of the bogey team and one of their biggest nemesis in the league this season, and that they definitely want nothing to be able to finally get all 3 points against the Galaxy in El Trafico, and that they might be so focused about that game and just so excited to play that game that they forgot that they also have to take care of business against the Quakes. And, for the Quakes, as I mentioned, they're winless in the last 4 games, and it has just been a dismal run for the Quakes, and that this Quakes team, the way that they've been playing the last 4 games, is started to kind of reminds me of what happened in the first 4 games of the season when we, of course, lost all of them. And that I can look at this in 2 ways for the Quakes, and that I can see there's two different ways that the Quakes can maybe regain their confidence back and stop this slump that they're in. The first way is probably the best way to do it, but it's probably the hardest way to do it, and that is beat LAFC. Complete that revenge that we've been wanted from LAFC after what happened earlier this season and also in the US Open Cup by beating them at their own house, to be able to not only just gain some confidence, but finally say that we've been able to beat LAFC. But the other way I think it can help them end the slump and maybe get their confidence back up is that they just need to lose to LAFC and just need to lose it in a way that it's similar to what happened earlier this season when they lost 5-0 to them. Now, the second way is a crazy way to do it, and I'm pretty sure it's a very unpopular way in terms of the Quakes fan base to just say that the Quakes should just lose and lose big so that, that they can gain their confidence back. But I'm telling you, earlier this season when they lost 5-0 to LAFC, you can clearly see that the team just had said enough is enough, and that it really give them a really high confidence boost that they just got to stop whatever they're doing, and they need to really recover themselves, that now they are at rock bottom right now. So, that might be one way that we can, of course, do it, but obviously I want us to end the slump in the first way, which is we were able to go to Bank of California Stadium and we are able to win this game, which is going to be an impossible task. And that if we, of course, can do that, we become the first team this season to be able to beat LAFC at Bank of California Stadium, and only becoming, I believe, the 3rd team to ever able to hand a defeat to LAFC at Bank of California Stadium. But moving on into the last match of this midweek action is the Dylan Watford derby. Now, I have heard a lot of people talk about SKC versus Minnesota as the Dylan Watford derby, but I don't even know where that name actually come from. So I'm just going to say it because some of the fans said that that's what this derby is, and I'm not even quite sure if both of these teams actually have a very heated rivalry to each other. I mean, both of these teams tend to always face each other in the US Open Cup, so I guess maybe that kind of develop a little bit of a rivalry. But SKC coming into this game with a record of 8-7-11, while Minnesota coming into this game with a 12-6-8 record. SKC, of course, won 2-1 against the Quakes at home to keep their slim playoff hopes alive, while the Loons, of course, drew 1-1 to Orlando City at home. And in the last 5 head-to-head match, which excluding the US Open Cup, it was SKC winning Minnesota 2-0. Then they, of course, beat Minnesota again 4-1. They did drew 1-1 against Minnesota on the road, drew 1-1 again against Minnesota on the road before winning 3-0 against Minnesota. So this seems like kind of a very one-sided derby, where if this derby, of course, happened in Kansas City, then SKC most likely will win this game. However, considering the fact that the Loons are much better this season, and the fact that Sporting KC have not done very well this season, you never know. I mean, maybe Minnesota can finally get their first Dylan Watford derby win in Kansas City. Although, having said that, Sporting KC is a team that I'm pretty sure they are just emptying the tank right now. Like, they're at a point where they just have no margin of error anymore, and that if they even drop points at home, their playoff chances is pretty much done and dusted. And that, I think that will, of course be a challenge for Minnesota, considering the fact that the Loons, they don't really do as well on the road as they do at home. And in these last couple of matches, yeah, there is started to be a bit of a problem with this Loons team of the fact that they can't finish, and also they can't break down a bunker team. Now, I'm not saying Sporting KC is going to be a team that's just going to bunker, but you know, if they're going to do that, and if Peter Vermees decided that they're just going to bunker against Minnesota at home, yeah, this definitely will not favor Minnesota whatsoever. So it will be very interesting to see how this game, of course, would happen. But either way, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. I know this is just kind of like the appetizer of Heineken Rivalry Week. On Thursday, I would look at the other 11 games, which include some of the more big name kind of derby that's going to be taking place. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys give a like, smash that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below your prediction for all 4 of these games. And yeah, I hope to see you guys next time.